it is my great pleasure to invite our next guest, David Frost, who is CEO of SATSA, to tell us a little bit more about some of the great initiatives to drive more inbound customers from our inbound industry. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Absolute privilege to be with you, and thank you so much to Chief and the TBCSA for putting on this great conference every year. It's one of the highlights on the tourism calendar, and it is the opportunity to bring business and government together. And Sia, thank you so much for your really insightful presentation. So I'm going to share with you guys, Dorcas introduced me as the CEO of SATSA, but I'm also a TBCSA board member, and sort of recently been, I think, thrust back into the role of chairing the marketing committee at the TBCSA board. So we're going to share with you this afternoon just some thoughts and ideas that we have put together from a TBCSA point of view in terms of growth going forward. So we've disaggregated this into sort of bite-sized chunks, and I'm going to be taking you through that this afternoon. Chief's coming in at the end of it. He's going to tell you how this is the modality of making this operational. But I'm hoping you're going to get a sense that this is sort of, these are practical suggestions that we can go and start executing in our key source markets and indeed in special interest areas in the next couple of months to really look at accelerating particularly our, and I'm focusing on inbound tourism to South Africa. But let's start just from our side as the private sector. The point of departure. So where are we? I mean, it's a bit like, and I mean, I actually did this. I was in Ireland once and I asked for directions, and the guy said, well, I wouldn't start from here. So this is where we are, and this is our 2024 top 10 markets compared to 2019. And you know, very useful that we've had great growth out of the USA and the Netherlands. We were almost back to 100%. But some of our other key markets were sort of lagging behind. And I mean, I've ordered this in terms of the 24 recovery rate, not the actual, you know, quantum numbers. But if you go and look at Germany, which is our third biggest market, the UK, our second, and France is our fourth biggest market, we're languishing quite far behind. But, you know, importantly, I'm going to just carry on talking. Importantly, I mean, India and China are our two biggest opportunity markets, I would say, in terms of moving forward. And when you look at some of the really audacious goals we've set ourselves, if we're going to achieve those, India and China have got to be, you know, the two main locomotives of that growth. They're the two fastest growing international markets over the last 15 years, and we haven't done particularly well. So just to bring it up to the current sort of period, this is the first 7 months of 2025, and we see a slightly improved picture. The USA, Australia, really good, Netherlands strong, but the same markets sort of lagging a little bit behind. But the good news is that the recovery is getting slightly stronger, and this is summarized in the what you see up on the board there. And for our 24 recovery rate, if you look over here, that's for the year. Inbound tourism collectively was at 82%. So in 2019, we got 2.6 million arrivals. We only got 2.1 million arrivals in 2024. But the year to date for 2025, we're almost hitting 90%. So really encouraging that things are really starting to sort of pick up. But guys, this just sort of tees up the recovery thing. But I think that there is still work to be done. And Sia, it's one of the things we flagged earlier, and I think it's something we need to work on. But from a private sector point of view, we're going to go back and start surveying our DMCs, because I think we are overstating the US market at least by a third. Because the US market in particular does not come for a one destination South Africa holiday. They do multi-destination Southern Africa stuff. The Delta plane arrives at Tambo at 4 in the afternoon. So you've got to clear customs, stay at the Interconti or one of the other, maybe it's a Marriott, I don't know, City Lodge. But you stay at one of the hotels and you get on the plane, you fly to Maun, and you counter twice. And then a lot of guys get down to Cape Town. But guys, this is the just a slide that I think just sums up my concern and indeed our concern around growth going forward. And it's around geographical spread. And what has happened post-COVID is the geographical spread has got very acute. So we went and surveyed some of our big DMCs, and just to save time, I'm giving you the data from Travel Smart Crew. They did 3.5 billion rand of bed nights in 2023, and their 24 figure was 4.5 billion. So it's quite a useful and accurate barometer. But you can see there that the Greater Kruger and the Western Cape are really sort of dominate in terms of where their spend goes, and the rest of the country really isn't seeing very much. I mean, the fact that Mpumalanga outside Kruger gets 0.8% of their spend is problematic. But we know from anecdotal data and reports that Cape Town, in particular, the Greater Cape Town region, has recovered well beyond COVID, and really a testimony to the collective effort that Cape Town, the province, and private sector entities, Envidumini's with us. The marketing that Cape Town does is world class, and they're getting the plaudits for it. So it's our jewel in the crown, and they do attract really, really good business to Cape Town. But equally, the top end lodges at Kruger have also recovered. So if they are over 100%, and we were sitting at 82% in 2024, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out in the vernacular that the rest of the country is cucking off. They're not having a good time. So, and we see that from the Garden Route, the Eastern Cape, other parts of the country. But our big concern is that if we continue to insist on putting Cape Town in every single itinerary, and we're at 2.1 and Cape Town's full, then we can't grow as a destination. Then these things of 30 million arrivals and everything it's total pie in the sky. We're smoking our socks. So this is a real problem that I think we need to start sort of grappling with. And it's essentially, guys, a private sector problem. This is not some unintended consequence as a result of government policy and everything. We've got ourselves into this. And look, there are many reasons for the picture that we see. Part of it is around infrastructure, and I think we could do a lot better at that, the quality of roads, etc. There are areas of safety and security. But a lot of it is around skills, that we've lost a lot of skills, particularly in our outbound markets, in our key source markets. So when you have a dearth of skills and you've got iconic nodes like Cape Town and Kruger, it's easy to sell them. And bearing in mind the rate movement on the back of Cape Town and Kruger being full has also been quite excessive. And when you in the tour operating business, it's a margin business. So selling a hotel in Knysna for 1,500 rand or selling a lodge in Kruger for 20, you make more money selling the lodge in Kruger. So, but these are not insurmountable problems. But I think it's just really important that we acknowledge and that we are quite real and just frank with each other and ourselves about the point of departure. So, how do we go and fix this thing, and how do we get growing? So what we have done over the last sort of 2 or 3 years is fostered this process of getting together, getting the private sector through the peak body of the TBCSA together with South African tourism. And the whole idea was to put what we call a structured engagement together. And this we sort of got right in the beginning of this year. We'd got meetings together, we agreed a modality, we agreed what areas we were going to focus on. But as you would understand, recent developments, and let me not go into detail there, have meant that there's been a hiatus in this process. But it's important to reflect where we are. So what we did in the structured engagement process is we identified 6 key source markets. And those are the source markets we identified. Now guys, this was meant to be a point of departure. So you won't find all markets there, and maybe moving forward we need to include things like Australia, maybe South America collectively could be added through to that. And then we also identified niche markets. So niche markets, we had adventure, youth, golf and gastronomy. And then we also identified some strategic issues. There was the whole thing of the global brand marketing. You know, SAT have developed the Find Your Joy campaign. From a private sector point of view, if you go back historically, we did the Trevor Noah thing. But we certainly feel that there was opportunity to revisit that and to have a sort of joint go at that. The whole area of trade shows and road shows was identified. It's a critical component of what we do. Importantly, we'd moved forward on ATI, and you know, under the aegis of Daryl Erasmus, he set up an advisory group, which I think really worked very well with SAT in a very short time in the run-up to this year's Indaba, and we've had some really good debriefs and hoping we can play a useful role going forward. Glenton will talk about Meetings Africa, but hopefully we can get that same sort of joint task team going there. And then we identified the whole area of skills and training. As I said to you, we've lost key skills in our overseas markets, and we also have a dearth of skills within the South African sort of context. So guys, we identified this. So how the structured engagement was going to work was we were getting the actual granular country plans, the China plan from SAT, the UK and Ireland plan, etc. So we got those plans from SAT. We have established private sector task teams in all these areas. So we've got a China task team that's headed by Andrew Camp of Sun International, North America task team headed by Sean Kritzinger of Gilt Edge. There's an adventure task team that Handi de Tooy of SATSA heads up. Golf is headed up by Carl Reinders of Red Sands. And I think it's Gavin Eyre from SATEC heads up the sort of youth side. So the whole idea was, particularly here in the source markets, was to get those business plans, which we did. We then met as the private sector, and the idea was we would meet, we'd have a look at those plans, and we'd develop a perspective on that. And then what we were meant to do is sit down together with SAT and jointly interrogate those plans and see how we could enrich them with some private sector input. Now, we haven't been able to get to that point with this recent hiatus. However, what we do have is we have a very good idea coming out of these things. And bearing in mind, we've only had one meeting. So what I'm sharing with you is quite embryonic thoughts about what we would like to see from a private sector point of view in some of these key markets. And I'm going to share those with you. So the first one is, and sorry, this is an overarching thing. And the first idea, or the first growth suggestion that we want to put forward is the whole idea of joint marketing agreements. When we step back and we look at the TOMSA funds, there was a portion of the TOMSA funds that we have historically ring-fenced, and it's known as the collaborative fund. And that was meant to be a joint decision-making between SAT and the TBCSA. And the original idea when that fund was set up was to fund the joint marketing fund joint marketing agreements. SAT has historically played in that space, but over the last couple of years, I think there were issues raised around procurement, etc. That element has sort of fallen away. But quite simply, the joint marketing agreement idea is to go and engage with leading tour operators overseas around an incremental marketing push into South Africa. So the point of departure is to ring fence what they're currently doing already, because we don't want to take money and give it to them to fund stuff that they were going to do anyway, because that's totally suboptimal and we wouldn't get a return on investment, and we shouldn't be subsidizing business. But what we should be doing is incentivizing incremental marketing activities. So in that respect, we would want to engage these operators, get a proposal from them around what incremental marketing they could do. Now that may be activities in market, so they might do an advertising campaign, etc. But it might also, very importantly, and this is where a lot of our you'll see from our source markets are talking about, we need a concerted program around mega fams to get new people that have come into the industry post-COVID, get them out to South Africa and get them to understand what we have and how to sell it. We're a complex destination. We're not a flop and sort of just fly and flop destination. We're a touring destination. You've got to know how to spell Oudtshoorn. You've got to know where the hell Oudtshoorn is to put it in an itinerary. You know, when you're sitting in Vancouver, you know, not many people know about Oudtshoorn. The other important thing about joint marketing agreements is we don't want one-hit wonders. We don't want once-off things. So what we're looking at is to get a 3-year marketing plan from the operators we engage, but it's funded on a year-by-year basis, depending on, very importantly, a return on investment. But the great thing about joint marketing agreements is they are totally measurable. So when you start, we ring fence what is being spent. We also, from a point of departure, know how many passengers they send to South Africa each year. And on the back of the incremental marketing program, we can measure how many extra passengers do we get, how long do they stay, and how much do they spend. So that then gives you a very clear return on investment. But the other very important element to this is, and this is where these agreements need to be negotiated. We shouldn't simply put a request for proposals out, and when people send it to us, we just say, well, here's the money. You've got to go and negotiate these. And very importantly, we have an ability, because they are, you know, once the marketing element has been identified, there's a cost to the overall incremental marketing plan. And that is funded on a 50-50 basis. The operator funds 50%, and we as South Africa fund the other 50%. But because we've got skin in the game, we've got an ability to go and negotiate around 3 things. One is geographical spread, so that we get marginal areas of our country starting to be actually featured in whatever platforms and however the operator sells. The traditional sort of parlance was brochures, but it may be other mediums. But so one is geographical spread. The other one is seasonality. So, you know, when do we need people here? That's also important. And thirdly, the whole area of transformation and getting black-owned product into brochures that can be booked in market. Very important. So we've got an ability to influence those 3, and you know, that's why, you know, I think this is you know, quite an exciting process sort of moving forward. Now, the very useful thing is we've been here before. We've actually done this. So I was involved in 1998, thrust into tourism as the special advisor to Palo Jordan and then Valley Musa. And it was on the back of a big injection by the Business Trust. So they put in a whole lot of money, and a portion of that money was identified for joint marketing agreements. And I went back and trawled into the sort of foul underbelly of my laptop and managed to come up. I'm going to give you, so we did 47 agreements. That's the second page. Those are the operators, and you can see the sort of details of PAC spend is all sort of identified there. But it was 47 joint marketing agreements, total cost of just under 18 million rand. But those 47 agreements were sort of worldwide. But particularly in key markets, when you get your market leaders in that market, you get 7 or 8 of them all doing this. You know what happens is you get a buzz in the market. There's a South African buzz. And then all the other guys in the market start looking over the fence, like, what's happening? It's like, what's happening with South Africa? You know, can we get involved? And that's what I think we need, and I think would be really important. Equally, I was involved in running Namibia tourism in the mid-noughties. We did the same thing. These were the deals we did as a country in Namibia. Now, you know, in Namibia we had Namibian Airways, so if people used Air Namibia, it was counted as part of that in-country contribution. But we spent 9.3 million, and we got a 42-to-1 return on investment in terms of how that works. But guys, this can work, but it needs to go and be put in at scale. But I think the other important thing is just bear in mind, we can't get everybody to the starting line and to start the race. So this is about market mapping, about working with our SA tourism officers in country, identifying which operators have the potential and also the appetite, and then going and sitting down and negotiating with those guys. Okay, that's joint marketing agreements. Now on to the UK and Ireland. Now, guys, just bear in mind, you know, the experts are in the task teams. I'm not the expert, I'm just the messenger. So bear in mind if I just sort of take you through this sort of fairly quickly. But the ideas that came out: implement joint marketing agreements, the need for collaboration and input on pre-Indaba hosted fam trips, and utilizing TBCS funds to host trips outside the travel show period, conduct roadshows and training. There was a big emphasis on training in terms of getting out and doing that. Brand ambassadors for the UK in the UK for South Africa, and that's something that we did going back to that big push post '98. Is we set up an advisory group in the UK, in Germany, and in the US. And I think Chief was involved in SAT when we had that advisory group. So these are CEOs of big tour operators. It might be CEOs of airlines. It might be CEOs of big PR agencies that understand how you get that out. And the useful thing then would be for the board of the TBCSA, the board of SAT, maybe on a twice-a-year basis to meet. And we can do that virtually, but just to get insights from people at that level. And one of the big things we learned when we did this going back was these guys deal with the world. So you'll get a big tour operator in the UK. No, we've done this amazing thing with Thailand that really worked, and it could actually work in South Africa. So that's a very sort of important thing. Then the one was just on improved communications, and then marketing opportunities and events, SA festivals in the UK summer, lecturing on movies filmed here, and also exploring the whole area of charters and part charters. The UK still has a quite a big sort of outbound charter market, and it tends to be seasonal. So just having a look at that. And then what came out, and it's very nice to be here, and people said, how are you feeling? I'm a bit tired because we had the SATSA conference last week, but I'm getting conference fit, just like roll on. But at our conference last week, we were really privileged to have Robbie Brosen, chairman of Nando's, with us, and it's something we spoke about in a previous iteration of the structured engagement. When we met with Ian O'Tumolan and the team, was Nando's it's South African, and not many people in the UK know that. I was watching Graham Norton, and there was one British person explaining to an American what Nando's, and it's just chicken. It's chicken. It's not chicken. It's South African chicken, and it's Southern African. It's got the Mozambican thing as well. But they've got this massive footprint in the UK. They're doing a big launch using. They've gone to Jesse Clegg, and he's chosen 9 of his dad's songs, and they're doing it with a whole lot of sort of cover versions using top South African, and that's being launched in the UK. So there's certainly the opportunity to go and sit down with them and say, let's put a guerrilla campaign together for South Africa with a call to action, because that's something we miss in some of the advertising we do. Okay, North America. So destination training with agencies, hosting events in some major cities. Work with DMC's tour operators and very importantly, look at the travel agent consortia, Virtuoso, Internova, Signatures, and look at the possibility of JMAs with them. There was this whole thing about giving budgets to DMC's tour operators to host FAMs, but I think that whole thing of FAM trips, I would personally, if you're doing these mega FAMs, to my mind, they should be part of a broader JMA with particular sort of operators, so that you get not only just bringing agents out here, but let's go and get some incremental marketing spend generated in market that can then capitalize on the sort of FAM trips that come back here. Looking at travel influencers on social media, and then looking at virtual shows and particular tour operator road shows, and seeing how we could support them. But guys, just bear in mind, the UK team, because we got plans late, wasn't even able to meet. So this is really off the back of a cigarette box. This can be strengthened and improved as we would seek to meet before the end of the year. The German-speaking Europe had some short-term and long-term proposals. I mean, I'm not going to go through all the stuff because you're seeing a bit of a repetition. But the big idea for Germany was that we've been a bit invisible and a bit anemic in the German market over the last couple of years. And what they're proposing is a 4-city German roadshow in summer, where we go out and we use the sort of model that ATA's very successfully crafted in the UK of Experience Africa, and we get out into that German market and establish a presence there. And then China, I should really get Andrew Camp up to come and do this, but I'll have to be the messenger. But the thing was to develop customized marketing material, conduct roadshows and product promotions in second and third tier cities. The influencer marketing, get involved in that. They talked about specific digital platforms. And then there was some sort of practical things around safety, the training of sort of tourism guides. But some just key practical things that we can implement and look at in China. India, once again, looking, if we've got the JMA thing, that would be useful, leveraging the Indian cricket tour. They're looking at celebrity influencers and partnerships. There's some stuff there. And then they're looking, once again, at looking at a mega FAM timed outside the sort of peak traveling season. And then developing campaigns that target repeat visitors. And I think that's something that we should be thinking of across markets, because, and once again, Sia, we need to get back to, let's get the data on this, because intuitively we've got the sense that we have a good repeater rate. But then what is it actually? Does it differ in certain markets? And then very importantly, how do you build campaigns that utilize repeaters? I mean, I think that's our biggest, those are our biggest advocates. And, we constantly run after trying to get people who've never come and never been here, rather than utilizing people that have and seeing how we can get their thing. From Africa, there was some suggestions there. Relationship building with the South African trade. We were looking at market segmentation. We're talking, and a lot of this was around West Africa. Relationship building with the in-country trade. There were some suggestions on that side, and then improved marketing to include the high-end name brand shopping, marketing at airports, and the whole thing of improved visa processing, which is not really our beat. And we are hopefully going to hear some really good news from Minister Schreiber tomorrow. Chafiwe and I, and one or two others at the TBCSA have been privy to a presentation on the electronic visa, and it really is a game changer of note. Let me just charge forward. Adventure tourism. So I'm not going to go through through all the details here, but as Sia mentioned, adventure tourism is our sleeping giant. But we get on platforms year after year and we say this, but we don't do anything. So on the special interest side, it's an area that SAT hasn't really budgeted for and come up with concrete plans for. So the conversation with SAT in terms of the structured engagement is, let us as the private sector develop a business plan. It'll have 3 or 4 key areas, but let's get it into the budget and get it function. Now, if it can't be done through SAT, and we're talking about a private sector led sort of approach, we've actually got the business plan. That's what we want to do. We've got it and we've costed it. Equally for golf tourism. And I mean, just from my side, I mean, let me just say, because I've been remiss, I mean, one of the things that I think has not helped us is the decision the minister has taken to stop roadshows. I mean, to stop activities. So international golf travel market, we're not going to this year. That's a travesty in my book, because when international golf travel market happens this year in October, there's going to be no South Africans. And what message does that send the world? Well, we're just not open for golf tourism. I mean, Glenton had the same thing with IMAX, and you know, there's been a last-minute 11-hour rallying around, and all credit to TOMSA for stepping into that breach. But you know, we can't just not go to these things, guys, and you know, there's a way of doing it. So unfortunately, we're not at RGTM this year, but the useful thing is that if we can really get our heads around it, we'll have the funding for next year and we can get on and do the necessary work. Equally, there's a similar plan for youth tourism. So moving on to the whole thing of brand marketing and destination marketing. We think that there's certainly an opportunity to revisit this. The Find My Joy campaign, I must just say, just didn't find major traction and resonance with the private sector. And what came out in our task teams was it doesn't translate well, if at all, into German. In China, it's got some really negative connotations. So it's not one of these campaigns that you can simply cookie cut and paste around and do the rest of the world. Now, we had a very useful go at it 2 or 3 years ago when the TBCSA funded the Trevor Noah campaign. And I think it was innovative, it was edgy and everything else. But to my mind, we went about it the wrong way, but it was a quick and dirty. But it's like making a movie when you sort of start with the stars. So we've got Nicole Kidman. Okay, well now, let's reverse back and then we'll write a script and find a director. Let's write the script first, then you find a director, and then you get the actor. And that may be Trevor Noah, it may be DJ Coffey, it may be Charlize, it may be Roger Federer. You know, all South African connections. But let's look at harnessing the best creative minds that we've got. We've got some great people. We've got this incredible guy. I'm very proud to wear my Josie Majosi t-shirt. I mean, the launch of Josie Majosi, Malusi Mshlangu came back from the US. He was the top advertising guy in the world. And he came back to work on Josie, establish his agency in Joburg. He's just got the Nando's account, so you can watch that space. The Josie and Josie thing is world class, but it's guys like him that we need to be engaging and seeing what we can come up with. And guys, I'm going to finish on this last bit and then hand over to Glenton. And this is sort of hot off the press. This came out of our panel at the SATSA conference last week on geographical spread. And I had Helen Bolton from New Frontiers on the panel, gave some really important insights. But then we had on the panel David Ryan, and to my mind, one of the best, just the best minds around on tourism in the country. And I had no idea what he was going to present, and bear with me, because I'm not an expert in this. I'm going to try and talk you through it, and I think it may make sense. But he said that the way to deal with geographical spread, and it's something we should be doing anyway, has its whole thing rooted in artificial intelligence, in the AI. But this is a country approach to AI, like what we should be doing as a country, and he thinks it's best suited and should be just private sector led and driven. And it's not, I think it's hardly going to cost anything, if anything at all. But his thing is, when it comes to trying to shift geographical spread and to look at this, we don't need more marketing, we need more intelligence. So his thing is, we've spent years treating marketing as the solution. If we just create more awareness and we just bring people here and everything else, we'll somehow crack this. But as he said, another campaign, another awareness push, another trade show activation. But his point is, we're no longer marketing to the traveler. We're marketing to the machine that tells the traveler where to go. So the machines don't respond to awareness. They respond to data, to structure, and to intelligence. So what does intelligence look like? In his thing, it's not abstract, it's practical, it's measurable, it's long overdue. It means creating a verified, structured, up-to-date information about every route, region, operator in this country. It means turning inspirational content into structured data, clearly targeted, geolocated, linked, and categorized. So it means building clean, trusted data sets that reflect not just price and product, but purpose, people, and place. So it means training the machine on the full richness that South Africa has to offer, not just what's already visible. And the mistake that he warns against is we mustn't confuse this with more digital marketing. It's not about increasing ad spend. It's not about targeting better or writing smarter headlines. So it's about building a tourism intelligence engine for South Africa, not a website, not a booking portal, and not a glossy content hub, but an AI-powered infrastructure that makes every corner of South African tourism visible, recommendable, discoverable by both humans and machines. And he's got a this is the sort of step-by-step thing. And he's saying it must be private sector-led. This is his suggestion. And immediately coming out, because we had Martin Vest from Tourvest, the two of them have agreed to sort of lead the charge on this. And we wanted to bring in CEOs of a couple of more of the big DMC groups and see what they can do in this regard. But if we get this right, guys, we can this is a really practical way of influencing the whole thing about geographical spread, getting practical, saleable stuff through to DMCs and operators so that we can try and sort of redress that geographical balance, and in doing so, grow our rivals, get out of that straitjacket that we've got ourselves into with Cape Town and Kruger. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you found that interesting and useful.